Did you know that certain ancient traditions believed the universe mirrors our own internal vibration? That the outer world merely reflects the melody we play within our soul? It's an intriguing idea, to think that the way we are perceived begins not out there, but in here. This incessant search for a glance of approval, for an external sign to confirm our worth, resembles trying to hear an echo without having first made a sound. We live waiting for the world to choose us, to validate us, without first recognizing the light we already possess. It's like a sun waiting for a candle's permission to shine. But what if true worth doesn't need applause or recognition to exist? What if it's like gravity, a silent and fundamental force, present regardless of whether it's noticed or understood? The essence of who we are does not scream for attention. It simply is, waiting to be discovered by ourselves. In light of this, a question pulses at the core. Does the dance of life invite us to stop seeking the reflection in someone else's mirror and finally face the luminous source that resides in our own being? What would happen if we stopped asking to be seen and started to see ourselves? The shadow of comparison. When we become permeable, there is a subtle, almost invisible belief that whispers to us about our own smallness. When we listen to that voice, we begin to measure our worth by others' standards, allowing the world to dictate our value. It's as if we hand the brush of our self-esteem to someone else to paint our portrait. In this state of diminished self-perception, we start bargaining for attention, begging for a space that already belongs to us by right of existence. We dilute our standards, accept less than our soul longs for, all in the name of a connection that often proves superficial. We become an edited version of ourselves, fearing that our wholeness won't be accepted. The mistake lies in thinking that our worth needs to be proven externally, like merchandise on display, instead of being realized internally, like a treasure discovered. When we see ourselves as ordinary, we allow treatment that doesn't match our unique and irreplaceable nature. We trade our essence for crumbs of recognition. Thus, without noticing, we relinquish our sacred center and become a convenient option on someone else's game board. The true journey begins when we question this self-deprecation and recognize that the measure of our being is not subject to external evaluation, but to our own awakened awareness. The inner sanctuary, awakening the non-negotiable essence. Within, each being pulses an invaluable essence, a unique quality that resonates with the very source of life. To perceive oneself as a treasure, not a clearance item, is the first step in claiming the inherent dignity of our existence. It is awakening to the understanding that our energy is sacred. When we stop offering ourselves as an easy solution or accessible bargain, something magical happens. We begin to cultivate an inner garden of self-sufficiency, where our standards are not walls, but the contours that define our sacred space. We stop hiding so others feel comfortable and begin to radiate our authentic light. There is no nobility in desperate yearning for acceptance, nor true respect in unrestricted availability. True preciousness is not measured by how many glances it attracts, but by the quality of the energy it emits, the depth of the silence it holds, and the selectivity with which it shares its inner world. To recognize this intrinsically valuable nature is like finding a wellspring of inner strength. It's understanding that genuine connection flourishes not from lack, but from the wholeness shared by souls who recognize themselves in their entirety and non-negotiable worth. The invisible chains, the paradox of limitless giving. We were subtly taught from an early age to weave our identity with threads of others' approval. We believed that by giving more of ourselves, more time, more energy, more understanding, we would finally attain the longed-for recognition and belonging, a silent promise that continuous effort would make us enough in the world's eyes. However, this constant performance logic traps us in an exhausting cycle. The more we pour ourselves out trying to meet external expectations, the more we realize genuine respect seems to drift further away. It's like trying to fill a bottomless container. The giving becomes endless, but appreciation never arrives. The universe operates through a subtle energetic balance. Giving that does not honor one's own energy limits does not generate admiration, but instead a perception of an inexhaustible source, and therefore less precious. At the core, human interactions mirror this law. What is offered without boundaries, without a sense of self-worth, loses its charm and power. Therefore, true sufficiency does not lie in giving to the point of exhaustion, but in understanding the sacred value of one's own energy and establishing healthy boundaries. It's recognizing that respect blooms not from subservience, but from the integrity and self-respect cultivated from a balanced, conscious center. The radiant presence. The magnetism of the authentic self. Consider the mountain. It does not strive to prove its greatness or convince the valley of its solidity. It simply is. And in its silent, unwavering presence lies a magnetic power that draws attention and inspires reverence. So too is the nature of our most authentic essence. This intrinsic quality, this unique vibration that each soul carries, doesn't need campaigns or speeches to be perceived. It resonates on its own, like a pure musical note in the concert of the universe. When we inhabit this inner truth, without the need for external validation, our very existence begins to generate a field of attraction. Genuine desire is not awakened by performance or pleading, but by resonance with something real, whole, and self-sufficient. The energy of someone who recognizes their worth doesn't seek to be chosen. It naturally selects and draws in those who vibrate in harmony with its depth and truth. The true question, then, transcends the search for external acceptance. It invites us to dive inward and remember the inherent preciousness that has always been there. In doing so, we not only change our perception, but alter the very energy we emit, becoming a beacon of authenticity. The hidden treasures, revealing strength in uniqueness. Often, what we consider our eccentricities or deviations from the norm, our intensity, our deep silence, our unique way of seeing the world, are in fact portals to our most genuine strength. They are the unique signatures of our soul, waiting to be recognized and honored. Driven by the desire to belong, or by the fear of standing out, we often hide these precious facets. We edit our expression, smooth our edges, trying to become more acceptable, more palatable to common taste. We sacrifice authenticity at the altar of conformity. Yet this intensity you tone down, this mystery you dilute, these boundaries you hesitate to draw are not weaknesses. They are the marks of a spirit that refuses to be diluted, of someone who carries a depth that won't settle for the superficial. They are tools of discernment and power. Therefore, embracing these singular characteristics is not an act of rebellion, but of deep wisdom and self-love. It is in this space of unrestricted authenticity that true magnetism resides, the strength that distinguishes us and frees us from the need for fleeting approvals. The veil of convenience. When inner power is ignored. Have you ever felt that your presence, your inner light, is perceived by others on a subtle level, even if their words or actions suggest otherwise? There is a curious dynamic in human interactions where another's glow is often recognized in silence but ignored on the surface for convenience. Often, this apparent blindness is not a lack of perception, but an unconscious or deliberate strategy. You are expected not to notice your own power, to continue offering your energy without recognizing its true value, thus remaining in a position of easy access and predictability in relational games. However, the moment you awaken to the magnitude of your inner being, something fundamental shifts. Your vibrational frequency changes. You become energetically too expensive for dynamics that feed on your self-devaluation. Your light, once dimmed, now shines with an intensity that no longer fits old patterns. Embracing this intrinsic value means accepting that you may become incompatible with certain environments or relationships. It is not arrogance, but a natural realignment with your truth. It is the courage to be authentic, even if that means transcending others' expectations and conveniences. The secret garden, the selective beauty of the rare soul. Not every flower is meant to bloom in public gardens under everyone's gaze. Some essences, by their singular and precious nature, flourish in more intimate corners, reserved for those with the sensitivity to perceive their unique beauty. Such is the soul that cultivates its inner rarity. This understanding frees us from the need to be universally accepted or understood. What is truly rare does not seek the applause of crowds. Its value lies precisely in its exclusivity, in its resonance with a more selective circle of kindred spirits. Trying to please everyone is to dilute one's essence, accepting not being. For everyone is an act of profound power and self-knowledge. It is understanding that your unique vibration will naturally attract those aligned with your depth, while others will follow their own paths. True connection is not born from conformity, but from the mutual recognition of essences. Therefore, instead of seeking to be chosen by the world, the spiritual journey invites us to choose ourselves with conviction. By honoring our uniqueness, we become a beacon for those who genuinely appreciate our light, creating authentic and meaningful connections, free from superficiality. The inverted mirror. Attraction in self-sufficiency. Observe the dance of energies in the universe. What desperately seeks to connect often creates an involuntary force of repulsion. The yearning for external validation, this hunger we expose to the world, paradoxically drives away what we most desire. It's as if the very need creates an energetic field that blocks genuine closeness. When our main motivation is to perform in order to be loved, to secure a place in someone else's heart, we become a reflection of external expectations. This constant effort to please, though it may seem a path to connection, empties us of our own essence and makes us less magnetic, more transparent, and ultimately forgettable. True attraction flourishes on a different ground, that of serene self-sufficiency. When we are anchored in our own worth, without relying on the external gaze to feel complete, we emit a vibration of wholeness. This whole and self-sustaining energy is what truly captivates and invites respectful approach. Thus, the subtle lesson life offers us is to abandon performance and cultivate the inner garden. Authentic connection is not conquered by need, but attracted by the resonance of souls who recognize themselves in their wholeness and vibrate from a center of peace and self-knowledge. The keys to freedom. The power of the inner source. External. Applause can be intoxicating, a nectar that momentarily quenches the soul's thirst for recognition. However, depending on this external source to nourish our sense of worth, imprisons us in invisible chains, making us hostages to the tides of approval and rejection, a subtle form of emotional servitude. True emancipation begins when we discover the inexhaustible source of validation that resides within us. It is an act of reclaiming sovereignty over our own inner state, recognizing that our sufficiency is not a seal granted by others, but an inherent truth of our being. On this path, detachment arises not as indifference, but as a practice of wisdom. It is the ability to love without possessing, to care without losing oneself, to feel without being subjugated by emotion. It allows us to navigate life's waters with equanimity, anchored in our center. Cultivating this self-validation and detachment is like forging the keys to our own freedom. It frees us from the emotional roller coaster dictated by the external world and allows us to walk with a peace and strength that emanate from a place of deep inner connection and self-knowledge. Thiun, shine of essence, beyond the decorated facade. We live in times that exalt the outer polish, the art of crafting attractive appearances. We learn to decorate the facade of our existence, polishing the surface for the world's eye, while sometimes neglecting the cultivation of the inner space, where true substance resides. This relentless pursuit of flawless aesthetics, of a performance that captivates, can lead us to build castles of sand. However elaborate the decoration, a structure without solid foundations remains fragile, susceptible to life's winds. The energy we emit cannot be fully fabricated. It reveals the truth of our inner state. Authentic elegance and lasting magnetism do not arise from the effort to appear, but from the courage to be. They lie in the stillness of one who is comfortable in their own silence, in the depth of one who knows themselves beyond social masks. This anchored presence communicates more than 1,000 rehearsed words. When we nourish our essence, when we cultivate truth in our secret garden, our very presence becomes a silent testimony of our worth. We no longer need to cry out for attention. The genuine light we radiate naturally attracts and resonates with those who seek depth, not just surface. The inner ocean, navigating emotions with mastery. There is a serene strength that lies not in the absence of feeling, but in the ability to navigate emotional currents without shipwrecking. It is inner mastery, a state in which one can feel the full spectrum of human experience, joy, pain, love, and still choose their response from a center of stillness. Many confuse emotional reaction intensity with the depth of passion, becoming leaves in the wind, carried by every gust of feeling. This constant reactivity, this vulnerability to internal and external storms, makes us predictable and permeable to influences that unbalance us. Cultivating emotional detachment, in this sense, is not about building walls of ice, but about becoming the captain of one's own inner ship. It is watching the wave rise, feeling it pass without being swept away. This calm in the face of turbulence creates a field of mystery and silent strength that intrigues and commands respect. This ability to feel everything and still remain anchored is a high form of self-awareness. It is the freedom not to be a slave to one's emotions, responding to the world not from momentary chaos, but from the perennial wisdom that resides in the core of one's being. The serene fortress. Respect generated by inner calm. Consider the disarming power of a presence that does not waver in the face of external turmoil. Someone who, when ignored, rejected, or confronted, does not emotionally shatter, but returns to their center with serenity. This inner discipline is a magnetic and unsettling force. When emotional manipulation attempts meet with unshakable calm, they lose their power. The inability to control the other's response forces a shift in the interaction dynamic. Respect begins to flourish where before there may have only been attempts at dominance or indifference. This inner fortress does not need to shout to be heard. Its silence speaks volumes. The absence of desperate reaction speaks of self-confidence, and of a worth that does not depend on momentary approval. The presence of one who remains centered, even under pressure, becomes a living testimony of their strength. Thus, the energy of those who cultivate this emotional discipline transcends the need for validation. It becomes a standard of integrity that naturally inspires respect, not by imposition, but by the simple demonstration of a quiet and authentic power that cannot be easily disturbed or diminished. The mirror of choices. Shaping the treatment. We receive. The interactions we experience are like subtle mirrors, reflecting not only who we are, but also the patterns we silently authorize. Every yes said to a situation that dims our light, every stay in a space where our essence is not celebrated, sends a clear message to the universe and to others about the boundaries of our self-respect. It is not just words that define the contours of our sacred space, but primarily the choices we make moment by moment. When we consistently accept less than what our soul recognizes as worthy, we are, in practice, teaching others that our value is negotiable, that our energy can be consumed without due reverence. To cry out for respect while nesting in devaluing dynamics creates energetic dissonance. It's like asking for sunlight while choosing to remain in the shade. The change in how we are treated does not begin with external demands, but with the inner courage to align our choices with our intrinsic value. True transformation occurs when our actions become a living testimony of our standards. Refusing to participate in games that diminish us, choosing integrity over convenience is the most powerful language to communicate our non-negotiable worth to the world. The sacred silence, the strength found in one's own company. Choosing the path of inner alignment over external acceptance requires a quiet courage. It often means stepping into solitude, not as exile but as a necessary sanctuary for hearing the soul's own voice, far from the noise of others' expectations. This inward journey can feel uncomfortable at first. Letting go of familiar, though draining, connections to honor one's own standards demands strength. It is an act of faith in one's integrity, a refusal to trade inner peace for superficial company or fleeting validation. In this chosen silence, far from the incessant pursuit of approval, lies a unique opportunity for healing and empowerment. It's where we learn to be enough for ourselves, to find comfort in our own presence, and to clearly discern what truly nourishes our spirit. Self-honor blooms in this space. Therefore, conscious solitude is not a loss, but an immeasurable gain in clarity and personal power. It is the fertile ground where dignity takes root, and peace becomes the compass guiding our choices, regardless of external pressures to stray from our authentic path. The inner reflection, the source of external transformation. The quest to change how others perceive us is like trying to fix a reflection without touching the source of the image. The question that often echoes is, how do I make them see me differently? When perhaps the more powerful inquiry is, how do I begin to treat myself differently? The root of change lies in the soil of our own being. This inner transformation manifests in the cessation of external performance. We abandon the need to explain our essence, to chase validation, or to prove our worth as if constantly on trial. Instead, we choose to inhabit our truth with a quiet, consistent serenity. By cultivating this internal space of self-respect, even without applause, our energy becomes more cohesive, more grounded. We become less susceptible to external emotional storms and attempts to diminish us. This inner firmness, this refusal to be shaken, reverberates subtly but powerfully. It is in this state of unshakable integrity that the external dynamic begins to shift. Others' perceptions adjust, not because we force it, but because our own vibration has changed. Genuine transformation is not imposed on the world. It radiates from the luminous center of our awakened being. The sacred circle. Preserving the inner flame. Our vital energy is not an infinite resource to be distributed indiscriminately. It is more like a sacred flame we carry within us, a spark that animates our being. Recognizing this precious nature is the first step to becoming conscious guardians of our own inner fire. There are interactions, conversations, and connections that, like cold drafts, threaten to dim or even extinguish this flame. These are the encounters that leave us drained, disconnected from our source. Discerning these energetic patterns is crucial to preserving our spiritual well-being. In this context, withdrawing from a circular conversation, an exhausting dynamic, or a relationship that does not nourish is more than simple escape. It becomes an act of deep reverence for oneself, a conscious gesture of protecting the sacred circle of our energy, preventing it from being wasted. By honoring our energy as sacred, we learn to share it with intention and wisdom. We choose to nurture connections that uplift us and step away from those that drain us, ensuring our inner flame continues to shine, illuminating our path and warming those who genuinely resonate with us. The soul's feast. Nourishing with inner truth. We carry with us a persistent mirage, that the seal of someone else's choice will finally fulfill us, that external recognition will quench the soul's deep thirst for belonging. We seek in another's gaze the confirmation that we are at last enough. Yet, even when that external choice occurs, the feeling of emptiness may linger, disguised beneath the mask of acceptance. If sufficiency has not been cultivated within, being chosen becomes just another stage for performance, a role that doesn't reflect the wholeness of who we are. True nourishment of the soul does not come from being likable or fitting perfectly into others' expectations. It blossoms from the courage to be authentic, to honor one's truth, even if that means not being universally understood or accepted. Integrity is the true banquet. To free oneself from the need to be chosen is to awaken to the sufficiency that already resides within us. It is to understand that value is not conferred from the outside in, but radiated from the inside out, from the deep connection to our non-negotiable and true essence. The inner throne. Alignment with innate worth. Adopting the internal posture of one who recognizes their own priceless worth is not an act of arrogance, but a profound alignment with the essential truth of being. It's like taking one's place on an inner throne that has always been there, waiting to be claimed. This silent conviction reverberates, altering the way we navigate and are perceived in the world. This security doesn't spring from shallow confidence or external achievements. It emerges from the depths of the soul, nurtured by the inner work of healing wounds, sitting with one's shadows, and learning to distinguish the voice of essence from the noise of insecurity. It is a knowing that blooms in the stillness of self-observation. When we align with this wisdom, we understand that our worth is not a prize to be awarded by the outside world. It simply is, intrinsic, innate, independent of recognition. External validation becomes irrelevant, for the source of our sufficiency flows from within, pure and constant. Walking through the world from this place of alignment creates a distinct energetic field. It naturally attracts respect and reverence from those who resonate with integrity, while gently repelling dynamics that do not honor this truth. We become a living standard of our own unquestionable worth. The silent symphony, being the standard, not the shadow. Thus, the journey back to essence reveals itself not as a search for something external, but as the blooming of an inner truth. It is the understanding that preciousness is not a title to be earned, but the very melody the soul sings when in harmony with itself. To embody the calm that watches storms without drowning, the clarity that discerns the real from the illusory, and the self-knowledge that anchors the being in its deepest truth, this is the alchemy that transforms perception. We stop being an echo in search of sound and become the very vibrational source. In this state of being, the need to be chosen dissolves like mist in sunlight. Presence becomes the standard, the silent reference of authenticity and value. Not by effort or performance, but by the simple resonance of a soul that inhabits its center with grace and conviction. True rarity lies in this silent symphony of being, in this intimate and unshakable knowing of one's own light. It is a state where worth need not be announced, for it simply radiates, touching the world from a place of inner fullness and peace.